I think this is a fourth class on Ya'kov. We're in Masechet Berachot, Perek Aleph, Se'if Yod. I guess I would put it, Amar Bilevi B'Chama, Amar Shakish. I'm just going to make a note about something we studied over a year ago. If you recall, we were studying Masechet Sanhedrin, and we were studying about the wars of Gog and Magog. And in the context of that discussion, I mentioned that there's going to be a war between America and a South American country. And people were looking at me like, I'm like, well, where did I come from? I think I might have even mentioned Venezuela, and you now see that actually we are in war with Venezuela. Donald Trump has basically placed a blockade on their oil tankers, and he's not letting them ship oil. So interesting how I said that a year ago, and now it's happening now. You can check the YouTube videos; you'll see it there. Okay, now to what we're studying today, which is about the hara. So Hashem tells Cain, Cain, he had some trouble because he had a very big hara, and he doesn't know how to control himself. And God tells him at some point, he's upset. He says, "What happened to your brother? Where's your brother?" And he says, "Shomer achi anochi." So Cain answers, "What am I? My brother's keeper? Is it my job to protect my brother?" So God tells him, "Kol demei achicha soakim elai min ha'adama." I hear the blood of your brother screaming to me from the soil, from the earth. And meaning, I know what you did. You killed your brother. And God tells something very interesting. He says the words, and this is a little before, when Cain is upset that God didn't accept his offering. God tells him as follows: Why are you angry? He says, "Haloim tativ se'et." If you're a good person, I'm going to accept your offering. Meaning, people bring a korban as a substitute for improving their behavior. God says, "I'm not interested in that type of korban." Right? That's not the purpose of the korbanot. Right? So the korban is not a substitute for improving your behavior. That's why I'm not a big fan of kemi'ot, red ribbons, or different types of tricks that people think are going to help them. Because the answer is right here. Nothing helps unless you make yourself a better person. And that's what God tells Cain. So Cain is saying, "Why don't you accept my korban?" And God says, "Halo im tativ se'et." If you would make yourself a better person, I would accept your korban. I'm not going to accept the korban of a lousy person. And, it's a lousy excuse for trying to, placate God. You think God is going to be placated because you're bringing a korban? And then he says something very interesting.
What actions did he do prior?
He brought a korban and he was upset. He was angry that God didn't accept his korban.
But God didn't accept it because he wasn't good.
Well, that's what God is telling him. God says, "Halo im tativ se'et." If you become a good person, or if you're a good person, se'et, I will accept your korban. Right? Ve'im lo tativ, but you're not a good person. Okay, and you should know, lapeta hatat roves, and this is going to be the topic we study tonight. Lapeta hatat roves means from the moment that, there's two explanations for lapeta hatat roves. One explanation, lapeta hatat roves, is from the moment that you enter this world, the opening of the womb, you enter this world. At that moment, the yetzer hara kind of like grabs the person. Lapeta hatat roves. Another explanation is, it'll be with you to the opening of the grave, right? Either way, the yetzer hara is with us to stay. So long as we're in this world, the petach hatat roves, when you say la petach means the opening of the womb, or la petach means opening of the grave, maybe both explanations are compatible with each other, right? The elecha teshukato ve'ata timshol bo, and the yetzer hara loves nothing more than to bring you down. So it's like the job of the yetzer hara to bring the individual down. This is what the yetzer hara wants. So what's our job? So if the job of the yetzer hara is to bring us down, what's our job? Our job is to govern ourselves properly and to not allow the yetzer hara to take over us, but rather the opposite. It is our job to take over the yetzer hara. You understand so this is the message that God tells to Cain. God tells Cain, yes, you have Yetzer Hara, you're angry, you're not a good person, I didn't accept your korban, don't think you're going to accept your korban as a substitute, and you have an obligation to control your rage and not act the way you're acting. And of course, the very next pasuk, Cain does not control his rage, he goes and he murders Hevel. All right? So that's the setup. But the question is, the atatim sholbo. So how is it that how can one govern or control his Yetzer Hara? And that's what the Gemara is dealing with here. You understand? Mm-hmm. So everybody understands the background I just gave. Now that we understand the background, let's read the Gemara. Amar Rabbi Levi bar Hamma, Amar Resh Lakish. The following tradition comes from Resh Lakish. Le'olam yargiz adam yasser tov al yasser hara. It is incumbent upon the person to fight. Yargiz almost means to get annoyed. Yargiz milashon rogez. Rogez means somebody is bothering me, and I'm not going to let them get away with it, right? So, and how do you do that? Your margiz, your yetzer hatov, because the same way Cain has a yetzer hara, and he's told by God, by the way, you have a yetzer hara, but he can govern the yetzer hara. How? With his yetzer hatov. So what's the yetzer hatov? The yetzer hatov is the ability of man to act intelligently. So we can act impulsively, but we can also act intelligently. So an impulsive person goes and murders his brother. What happened this week, I think, with Rob Reiner and his wife? The son murdered his parents. I'm sure the son regrets it. You know, it could be a complete Majnun case. I don't know. I don't know nothing about the son or the parents, but I'm assuming that after murdering one's parents, there is a feeling of, gee, maybe I should not have done that. Maybe there's a feeling of regret, a feeling of loss. But that's the idea of impulse. The idea of impulse is, don't think about what you're doing. So the Yetzer HaTov is, think about what you're doing, right? Right? Consider what you're doing, consider the consequences of what you're doing, right? So you see a beautiful pepperoni pizza, you never have pepperoni pizza, I'm going to eat the pepperoni pizza, it might give you indigestion. It happens, right? So a person thinks it's going to be wonderful to taste the flavor of the avera, but sometimes it gives you indigestion, and then you regret eating the pepperoni pizza because there's consequences to that. So the Yetzer HaTov is the ability to consider the consequences, and that's what he's saying, Le'olam yargiz. Almost get annoyed at your Yetzer Hara, you idiot. Don't you realize if I do this avera, do you realize what's going to happen to me? Do you realize the price I'm going to pay? Right? That's yargiz. Rogiz means like you're annoyed, you're angry. Right? So that's the first step. And how do we know about this? Shne'emar is a pasuk in the book of Tehillim. It says, Rigzu, I'm going to read to you the whole pasuk. Rigzu ve'al techeta'u, imru bilvavchem al mishkavchem v'dom musela. So let me open up the Gemara first of all, so I have to say it. Let me find it. Okay. All right. Okay. Rigzu ve'al techeta'u, imru bilvavchem al mishkavchem v'dom musela. So the pasuk, literally, the literal meaning of the pasuk is rigzu. Be annoyed, fight, push back. And by pushing back, you will abstain from sin. Right? So it's almost the peshat of the pasuk. The peshat of the pasuk is that a person is in a state where maybe there's an avera that he wants to do. And the author of the book of Tehillim says, it's Mizmor LeDavid. It's actually chapter 4 of Tehillim. It says, Rigzu ve'al techeta'u. Get annoyed. The Yetzer Hara is coming and wants you to do Averah. Be annoyed. And in this way, by being annoyed and pushing back, you will abstain from sin. You had a question?
Is this why we say this on Leil Kippur?
Yeah, that's very nice. So on Leil Kippur, we actually say the first few Mizmorim of Tehillim. For the Petichat Echad, we say Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Dalet, but it's a very appropriate pasuk for the night of Kippur. Right. Absolutely.
Otherwise, why are we saying four?
Right, and I think it's correct. I think we could have exactly. And by the very next pasuk after Rigzu ve'al techeta'u, imru bilvavchem al mishkavchem v'dom musela, the very next pasuk is Zibhu Zibchai Sedek. Bring korbanot of righteousness. Meaning, the opposite of what God tells Cain. God tells Cain, look, you're a rotten person. I ain't accepting your korban. Here it says, be good, be strong, fight the Yetzer Hara. And what's the next pasuk? Now you can bring a korban. This is the type of korban that God will accept. God will accept your korban because you were rogez, your Yetzer Hara, neged your Yetzer Hara. All right. So that's step one. Step two. If this fight, if this internal battle, and you're victorious in this battle, meaning you overcome the Yetzer Hara, that's great. That's the way it's supposed to be, right? The imla v'asok b'Torah. But if for some reason the Yetzer Hara is still annoying you, the Chachamim they compare the Yetzer Hara to a fly. A person is sitting down, every 2 seconds a fly comes, like leave me alone already. Where's the fly? I want to kill the fly. So the Chachamim, so you think the fly went away, suddenly a second, right? You're startled by the fly. So if you actually defeated the Yetzer Hara, it's not bothering you anymore. That's great. But it could be that it's gonna continue bothering you. The imla v'asok b'Torah. In that case, the best therapy against the Yetzer Hara is to la'asok b'Torah. Now, there's a few words. One is lilmod Torah, to study. What's the difference between lilmod Torah and la'asok b'Torah? You understand my question? So la'asok b'Torah means what?
Follow through with what you learn.
Be'ayun. Meaning to be immersed in the Talmud Torah. Means, yeah, the person can kind of open a book, he comes home, he opens a book, like a nice art scroll. Art scroll has very deep messages, and he opens a book and he's reading the very, very deep messages of art scroll, and he falls asleep after about 5 minutes with the book on his face. Okay, he studied, he read, he was he did. I'm not against that. It's better to read art scroll than some other thing. But that's limud. You studied a little, right? But then there's a person who's immersed in the study of Torah. It's like it's like a workout. When you start the workout, you're a little tired. You're not really into it. But eventually you got warmed up and you're you begin to sweat, and now you're getting all energized, and now you're half an hour into the workout, you're totally energized, right? You're a different person. You know what I'm talking about, right? What? Okay. Do it again. There's nothing, you can still do it. But okay. Be that as it may. So Hara Mordechai Eliyahu, and I kind of learned this from him, and he once was describing what it's like to study Torah. Hara Mordechai Eliyahu was the chief rabbi of Israel in the, I think, late 80s, if I'm not mistaken, something like that. I think after Hara Mordechai Yosef, I think he was the next one. Or maybe there's somebody in between, I don't remember. But okay, Hara Mordechai Eliyahu, I used to go to his classes, and he used to say how when you study Torah, during the first hour or two, you're kind of okay, whatever, you're reading, you're studying, but he said after 3-4 hours of studying, you wake up and your mind is totally focused, and you're in a different level. So that's what La'asok b'Torah means. La'asok b'Torah means to really immerse yourself into the study of Torah in a state where you're energized by the studying. Okay.
So we'll make this class 2 hours then.
Then we should make it 4 hours. It should be a 4-hour class actually, but seriously, for those, it takes a certain sacrifice. Just like with exercise, you got to be willing to break that threshold, right? It's like no pain, no gain. Mm-hmm. True, no pain, no gain, right? All right. So the very continuation of that verse that we read in chapter 4 of the book of Tehillim, it starts with Zru be'al techital. That was step 1. Then step 2 is Imru bilvavchem. Imru bilvavchem literally means speak within your mind. So what does it mean, speak within your mind? So that's referring to a person who's studying Torah, and he's immersed in the studying of Torah, and he's going back and forth trying to understand the concept. What does the Gemara mean? What does the Rambam mean? The Monei Nebuchim, the She'elah Tshuva, and you're immersed. So that's the inner dialogue of Torah, is la'asok b'Torah. It's an inner dialogue. Right. If this worked, great. So you did these first 2 steps, and now the Yetzer Hara is not bothering you anymore. That's great. Imlav, but if you didn't defeat the Yetzer Hara, at this point Yikra Kriyat Shema. Shenemar al mishkavchem. Then the third step is to read the Kriyat Shema. Then when you read Kriyat Shema, and for those of you who say Kriyat Shema properly, and when I say Kriyat Shema properly, to actually fulfill the mitzvah of Kriyat Shema, it's not enough to say the words Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. You have to, at least for that one verse, be focused on the ideas encapsulated within those words. Meaning, if you just say the words, but you didn't focus on the ideas contained in the words, then you didn't really fulfill the mitzvah of Ol Malchut Shamayim. So the mitzvah of Ol Malchut Shamayim is you should feel the kingdom of heaven. So when you say the words, Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, you actually have to understand, you're saying, I accept God as my ruler. Eloheinu. Eloheinu means he's my ruler, right? Adonai Echad, and there is no other ruler but God, right? So I accept God as a sovereign in the universe, and He is the only sovereign. So that's Kabbalat Malchut Shamayim. So when you immerse yourself in the idea of God's presence and you focus your mind upward towards God, it automatically takes you away from downwards. So you can look down, you can look up. If you look down, what do you see? You see mud. You see dirt. Okay. If you look up, what do you see? You see the sky. You see the stars. You see the infinite, the birds. But you see the infinity of the cosmos, right? There's infinite space up. Down below, mud, whatever. Eventually I hit the hard ground, and what is it? There's dirt, there's mud. Who knows what else is down there? That's looking down. But so when the Yetzer Hara means you're looking down. You're not looking in the right direction. So you have to reorient yourself. So how do you reorient yourself? You look up towards the infinity of the cosmos and you think about God as the ruler of the cosmos. So now you're readjusting the wavelength of your radio. So your radio is on the wrong channel. It's listening to this really annoying music, right? And now suddenly you're listening to the sublime music, the presence of God. So that's Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. And how do we know this? Again, the continuation of the pasuk, it says, Al mishkavchem. Now, what do we say about the Kriyat Shema? When do you read the Kriyat Shema? B'shochbecha uvkumecha. What does b'shochbecha mean? B'shochbecha means as you are going to sleep or in the nighttime. So, Al mishkavchem. So now this person, he is about to read the Kriyat Shema. During the daytime, the Yetzer Hara doesn't bother you because you're working, you're busy, you're doing things, you're too busy. At night, you say Kriyat Shema and you orient yourself towards God so that you don't orient yourself towards the mud, right? So that's Al Mishkavchem, that's Shema Yisrael. That was step 3, right? Im nesachon mutav. If you defeated the Yetzer Hara by saying Kriyat Shema, excellent. Im lav yazkir lo yom hamita. If this doesn't fix the Yetzer Hara, at this point, it's the last step. The fourth step, the final step is remind yourself of the day of death. Shene'emar v'lo musela. You're going to be silent forever, right? So what does it remind yourself of the day of death? I'm giving you my own interpretation. I don't know what other, I think this is my interpretation. I don't know if others interpreted the Gemara this way. But what does it mean, Yaskilo Yom HaMitah? So it's a visualization exercise. The visualization exercise is to visualize yourself there, in the ground, whatever happens in the ground, right? Because that's an actual reality. Meaning, we're not telling you to visualize something that's not going to happen. We're not saying visualize that you're standing on the pinnacle of Mount Everest. You may never stand on the pinnacle of Mount Everest. I don't see any purpose in going to Mount Everest. I know people like to do it and risk their lives and whatever, talk about it. That's fine, no problem. But that's a phony visualization. The Gemara is saying visualize yourself in the ground with whatever that means and all the unpleasantness and when you do that, that's it. That's the ultimate. At that point, there's no, if a person really does that, at that point, he can't do an Avera anymore. It's almost terrifying. Because when the person is in the ground, he wants to get out of the ground. He wants the neshama to get out of the ground. He wants to be able to go to Olam Haba. And suddenly he's thinking about these avonot that are going to be preventing that. and it's like it's a terrifying feeling. Like there's nothing that the Yetzer Hara can offer us in this world that can somehow compensate for the terror of being underground and being unable to leave underground, right? I guess so. That's what the Gemara is saying is very profound and very true. And again, it's not saying that shouldn't be the first step. That should be the fourth step, assuming nothing else worked. Then you go to that, Bidon Musela, and that's the eternal silence of, God forbid, being stuck underground, and that's it. God forbid. All right. All right. Any questions on that before we continue? She'elot, teshuvot. No? Okay. All right. So I'm going to continue.
Is this like not asmachta? Is this a hint?
I mean, listen. That's a good question. I'm looking at the pasuk in Tehillim, and I don't know if this terasha is so off the peshat, because it's actually saying, if you look at the pasuk is actually saying, "Vigzu ve'al techitau imru bilvavchem." Now, all the Gemara is doing is it's giving some substance to what does it mean, speak within your heart. What is this dialogue I'm having within me? So the Gemara says, oh, that's talking about Torah. I said, you know what? Yeah, that makes sense. Imru bilvavchem. Al mishkavchem. Now, it says, continue speaking Torah as you're going to bed. How do you speak Torah when you go to bed? So the truth is, the Hachamim, they're always thinking about Torah and Sugyot, and I can tell, like, if I'm studying Torah, I have dreams about Torah, and I have dreams about what I'm studying. But also, Kriyat Shema. You're saying Kriyat Shema, and you fall asleep saying Kriyat Shema. That's a Mishkavchem. Vedom Musela. And then you think about, the state of eternal silence, right? So that's the final. All right. Let's continue in the Gemara. Yeah. Amar Rabbi Yitzchak. Kol HaPerek Kriyat Shema mitato. Now, on the question of saying Kriyat Shema as you're going to bed, because the truth is, we say Kriyat Shema in the morning. There's a mitzvah said the Orat to say it in the morning. We say Kriyat Shema at night. There's a mitzvah said the Orat to say Kriyat Shema at night. Like now that it's winter, I think usually we end up saying Kriyat Shema when it's already sunset. So we did the mitzvah said the Orat saying Kriyat Shema at night. But we also say Kriyat Shema as we go to sleep. Notwithstanding that we said Kriyat Shema once after Set HaKochavim, it's not really after sunset, I misspoke. It's after Set HaKochavim, let's say 15 minutes or 20 minutes after sunset, let's say. So 20 minutes after sunset, you said Kriyat Shema properly, you prayed 20 minutes after sunset, you still have to repeat Kriyat Shema. It's called Kriyat Shema al Hamita. So if you look at the Siddur, this is a certain beracha that the Hachamim instituted, and then you say Kriyat Shema al Hamita, and I had a friend of mine, a colleague of mine from the company I used to work with, and we're still in touch. So somebody kind of cheated him in business or something like that, and he came to me as a lawyer. He wanted to know like what I think, and whether we have a case. I said, I'll tell you the truth. Honestly, you have a case, not a big one, but it's a case. Probably you get some money. But this is a person who's intrigued by Judaism. So I told him, yeah, you can pursue the case. You have a great opportunity now. He's working in a great company, and he's really doing amazing things. When I spoke to him, he was the CRO of the company. This is just a few months ago, Chief Revenue Officer. I told him, look, we can follow this. We can sue this other company, and yeah, they wronged you. They should have given you X, and said they gave you X minus 100, and you deserve that 100. I said, but in Judaism, there's a prayer that Jews say before they go to sleep. God, I hereby forgive anybody who harmed me. So he said, why? Why should I forgive anybody who harmed me? No, forgive everybody who harmed you. I don't want to. I said, well, it's for you, it's not for them. Because when you go to sleep and you have this rage within you, you're hurting yourself. You're taking your focus away from good things and things that you can be doing. So when you're focused on trying to avenge or wrong, if you're trying to stop somebody from wronging you, that's different. I'm not talking about that. Somebody's trying to punch, I don't believe in turning the other cheek, right? The other day I thought somebody was trying to take one of my Amazon packages. I was like,
really? Holy cow.
Thank God he wasn't there, because it would have been damaging for him. I know. I don't know how to install it. It's just but you're right. And I have one also. But anyway, I was ready for My blood was rushing. Anyway, but the point is, that's different. After the fact, just let it go because you're just hurting yourself. So what happened? Why am I saying this story? He did so well in sales as chief revenue officer. He was promoted to the CEO, the board of directors. I spoke to him the other day. I told you, don't focus on bad things, focus on good things. So it's really healthy. So Kriyat Shema Lamita is a great therapy because it starts with that prayer, God, I forgive everybody, I don't care. Life is too short. I'm not going to think about he did this to me and he did that and she did the other and this did this. Just be happy. Look at the opportunities God is putting in front of you and look in front and go forward and capitalize on these opportunities because the minute you look back, you're missing these opportunities. You see what I'm saying? So that's what happened to him. So this person, he focused on doing well in his new job. He did amazing, chief executive officer, and great stuff, really great stuff. Okay, so that's Kriyat Shema Lamita. So we have a mitzvah to say Kriyat Shema Lamita. So it's a few prayers, and then we actually say Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad Ve'ahavta, etc., etc., etc. So the Gemara says, if you are saying Kriyat Shema on your bed, it's like you're holding a double-edged sword. So usually a sword, it has a blunt side, and then it has a curved, sharp side. So, a person can hit with one side, right? But the double-edged sword is like boom, boom on both sides, right? That's called hara fifiyot. So if you say Kriyat Shema Lamita, it's like you have a double-edged sword. How do we know this? Because the pasuk says, "Romemot." So let me give you the full pasuk, and we say this every day. After Baruch She'amar, we have a series of Mizmorei Tehillim that we say, and the pasuks. This is the one right before Hallelujah, Hallelujah Bekocho. We have Hallelujah, Shir Radai Shel Hadash, Tilato B'Kal Hasidim. The praise of God is in the congregation of the Hasidim. We explained a few weeks ago that what a Hasid is, right? But the point is, it says Ya'alezu Hasidim B'Chavod Yiranenu Mishkevotam. The Hasidim, they're happy in the kabod. That means the kabod means the Shekhinah, the presence of God. They feel joy with the presence of God, and they sing on their mishkav. So what is mishkevotam? The peshat of mishkevotam means when they die and now they're shochavim, they're lying down, they're singing the praises of God. This is a remes for I believe it's a remes for Tehiyat HaMetim. Okay, it's a remes for Tehiyat HaMetim. And how do I know it's a remes for Tehiyat HaMetim? Well, I want to interpret it as a remes for Tehiyat HaMetim. Yelaninu mishkevotam. They're singing from the place that they were laid to rest, because the next pasuk says, Romemot el bigronam v'cheret pifiyot biyadam. The from their mouths is coming out words exalting the Almighty. V'cheret pifiyot biyadam, and they have a double-edged sword in their hand. So why do they have a double-edged sword in their hand? La'asot nekama b'goyim, to take vengeance against the goyim. So supposedly in Melchemet Gog Magog, in the book of Zechariah, there's these malachim that somehow enter the city. Maybe it's the neshamot of the tzaddikim. I mean, not the neshamot. The people, Tehiyat HaMetim, come back and they have a double-edged sword, and these people are going to be defeating the goyim. That's why I think it's talking about Tehiyat HaMetim. You understand my point? But the Gemara is taking a different angle. The Gemara is saying mishkevotam when they go to sleep. So the praise of God is on their mouths when they go to sleep, meaning Kriyat Shema. You understand the idea? Okay, so that's the Gemara. So again, the Peshat, I told you what I think the Peshat is. The Peshat, by the way, if you look at the Mizmor, it says, Le'esor malchehem ezikim. They're going to capture the kings, the rulers of the Goyim, and they're going to chain them up. They're going to be in chains of iron. It makes sense. You see a lot of these rulers, they're Mamash Sonei Israel, like the Prime Minister of Australia. What is Sonei Israel? They have a gun control problem in the country. I mean, it's just unbelievable. I mean, what a nitwit. But I don't believe he's such a nitwit. I think he's just an anti-Semite. They have rabid Muslims walking around killing people. The gun control problem. Okay, I mean, you can't help but the person needs medical attention. You can't even have. But I don't believe in having arguments with any of these people. I mean, they're sick people. That's the truth. Like, wasted them to argue. But the point is, here it says even better solution. Le'esor malchehem bezikim. The day will come when these kings are chained up and they're forced to be put on trial. Why am I so rageful against this individual? Because Israel warned Australia numerous times there's going to be an attack against the Jews. The Israeli Secret Service, the Mossad, was warning the Australian Secret Service, and they told them you have to do A, B, C. They gave them a whole plan to protect the Jews. They refused to do a thing. They refused to do a thing. Now in Australia, it's almost impossible to have a gun. It's the strictest gun enforcement laws, gun control laws in the world, one of the strictest in the Western world. And somehow this Muslim who was on the terrorist watch list in Australia had 5 guns.
Six guns.
Or 6, whatever. I mean,
Legal guns.
Legal, exactly. So, yeah, right. I'm supposed to believe the Australians are good people. Okay. Whatever. I don't believe that. And that's why I get very happy when I think about the Pesukim like this. The day will come. Nevertheless, that's the Peshat. So the Derasha is Romemot el Bigrona Mecheret Pifiot Be'anam. It's talking about when you go to sleep and say Kriyat Shema, it's like you're holding a double-edged sword against the Yetzer Hara. You understand the idea? Because you're saying Ol Malchut Shamayim, and why is it a double-edged sword? It's a double-edged sword because number one, it's Talmud Torah. Whenever you say Kriyat Shema, it's as if although you're studying Torah, and it's a double-edged sword. The other edge is because it's all Kabbalat Ol Malchut Shamayim. You're accepting the kingdom of heaven or the presence of God's sovereignty. So that's the other part of the sword, right? So that's how you defeat the Yetzer Hara. All right. My mashma. So the Gemara asks a question. How do I learn this from the pasuk? Let me just open up the Gemara. I lost it. Darn, 1 second. Bechila. It keeps taking me to the wrong place. These iPads are great when they work, and when you lose a place, they're less great. Okay. Okay, 1 second. Here it is. All right. All right. All right. All right. My mashma. How do we learn that this is talking about Kriyat Shema? Meaning, you brought me the pasuk Romemot el Bigronam. How do I know that this Romemot el Bigronam, the praise of God coming out of their mouths, and the double-edged sword is referring to Kriyat Shema? And I already anticipated what the Gemara is going to answer. Because the pasuk says this song is taking place on the bed as a person is lying down. But then later on it says the praise of God is on their mouth. So that's talking about Kriyat Shema, that the Kriyat Shema that a person says when he's lying down to go to sleep is like a double-edged sword against the Yetzer Hara. ואמר רבי יצחק, כל הקורא קריאת שמע על מיתתו, מזיקין בדלין ממנו, שנאמר ובני רשב יקביעו עוף, אין עוף אל התורה, שנאמר התעיף עיניך בו ואיננו, ואין רשב אל המזיקים, שנאמר ולחומי רשב וכתביני. Okay, I'm not going to study this particular derasha. I'm not going to explain to you the meaning of the derasha because I want to go to the next paragraph. Yes, we definitely have time. Good. I want to try to do the next paragraph. But the point is that there are harmful things that can enter a person's life. This is called mazikin. There's different explanations of what mazikin means. Mazikin can be harmful people. Mazikin could be, God forbid, harmful diseases. Mazikin can be harmful incidents. So he says that when a person says Kriyat Shema and he falls asleep saying Kriyat Shema, it brings a layer of protection on that individual that will protect him more so than other people that do not say Kriyat Shema. So that's the idea of Mazikim Bedelin Hemenu. We're going to go to the next topic. If there's any questions on what we just studied for the last 20, 30 minutes, let me know. Otherwise, we'll go to the next topic. That's it? Okay. Yod Aleph. ואמר רבי לוי בר חמא, אמר יש לקיש. מה דכתיב? ואתנה לך את לוחות האבן והתורה והמצווה שכתבתי להורותם. Let me give you the context for this pasuk. Moshe Rabbeinu is going to ascend the mountain. God spoke the Aseret Diberot. God spoke the Ten Commandments to Moses. At this point, they're just words. There are no tablets, meaning Moshe Rabbeinu didn't get any tablets. He's down with the rest of the Jewish people. So everybody hears the Ten Commandments, or at least the first two everybody hears. Moshe Rabbeinu hears the rest and tells the Jewish people. Now God tells him, okay, it's time to go up the mountain. So he says, well, I have to go up the mountain. We just said the Ten Commandments. He says, no. I want to give you first of all the tablets. Meaning, I'm going to give you tablets of stone, 2 tablets, right? That's luchot ha'even. The Torah, I also want to give you the Torah. We'll see what that is. The mitzvah, I also want to give you the mitzvah. We'll see what that is. Asher katabti lehorotam. These are the words that I wrote down so that you can instruct them with these words. So the purpose of this short paragraph is to explain to us what exactly did Moshe Rabbeinu receive in Har Sinai. Well, God told him, go up, I want to give you A, B, C, D. What is A, B, C, D? Luchot ha'even. A, Torah. B, Mitzvah. C, Asher katabti. D, okay, lehorotam. Okay, so lehorotam is actually a 5th thing. I should have said A, B, C, D, E. Okay, 5 things. These are the 5 things that Moshe Rabbeinu received in Har Sinai. Number 1, luchot. Luchot ha'even elu aseret deberot. That's the easiest one. Luchot ha'even is the 10 commandments. So the 10 commandments, Moshe Rabbeinu goes up the mountain, and when he gets to the top of the mountain, he sees there the 10 commandments were carved out of the mountain by God, and the words were written by God. So Moshe Rabbeinu physically takes possession of the 10 commandments. That's the first thing. Next.
Also,
Yeah.
it was a mountain and then it carved and he pulled it out, or what is it?
Oh, it doesn't say that he pulled it out because it the second or third time he goes up the mountain, it says Pesol lecha. It's up to Moshe Rabbeinu to carve it out of the mountain. The first time Moshe Rabbeinu didn't have to carve it out of the mountain. God carved it out of the mountain. Right? Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I'm so skewed by the movie thinking that there's stones that are prepared.
Yes.
It's the mountain, it's written on the mountain, and then it comes out from the mountain and he brings it down, or he throws it down.
No, apparently when Moshe Rabbeinu goes up the mountain, the stones were carved out of the mountain already.
Okay.
And after being carved out of the mountain, God writes the 10 commandments on the stones. But the stones were cubes. They weren't like, in the movie they had like the
arch.
Like the arch. Actually, the stones were cubes, and they were more like they were made out of a translucent sapphire, where you saw the words on the inside of the stone. Right? It's not like I'm saying this only because the movie has. I'm not faulting Cecil B. DeMille. I'm not trying to Sometimes people see Bible movies. Oh my gosh, they got this. It's Hollywood. What I'm saying. They're not. It's not Perush Rashi or Tosafot. It's okay. So it's arch. Okay. He didn't read Harambam or Nebuchim. Okay, he didn't get that. Anyway, the point is, there are 2 cubes.
It wasn't rock.
2 cubes, and it was a precious jewel, a sapphire-like jewel, which was translucent, and you were able to see the letters on the inside. And it didn't matter which direction you turned the stone, you were able to read the letters as such.
But I heard, I don't know what I was told, it was like it was actually carved all the way through.
Yeah, it was. It was carved all the way through, and yet somehow it didn't matter which direction you turned the stone from, you were able to read the letters.
Right, so the translucent aspect of the stone doesn't really matter so much.
Well, I think you also saw the letters on the inside.
So it's carved out, but you still see it on the inside.
Yes.
Okay.
How that happened, maybe the carving was from the inside. Again, I don't know.
Somebody needs to make a rendering.
Or when the Mashiach comes, we find the Ark of the Tabernacle, and inside the Ark we'll find the stones, and then we'll see.
Yeah.
Right? It'll be fascinating, to say the least. Okay. All right. So that's the Luchot ha'even.
You want to open up that box?
I don't know who's going to open it. That would be terrifying. I would not want to be in the room when they open up the box. All right. So that's a Luchot ha'even. By the way, when we read in the Mizmor, Even Ma'asu Habonim, the stone was despised by the builders. They saw the stone and they despised it. It is actually going to be the cornerstone. Is referring to the this Even, the 10 Commandments, right? Meaning it's a cornerstone of humanity. Okay, Luchot ha'even elu aseret hadeberot. Ve'hatorah zo mikra. The Torah refers to the 5 books of Moses, a Chumash. Of course, he didn't receive the entire Chumash in Har Sinai. How could he have? There's a lot of stories. There's 40 years, or 40 years of stories still to take place. But the idea of the Torah Shebichtav was given to him in Har Sinai, probably many of the Pesukim from the book of Bereshit, up until that moment in time. And then over the course of the 40 years, the Torah was completed in Ohel Moed. Moshe Rabbeinu would enter Ohel Moed, and it was like going to Har Sinai. Ohel Moed was like Har Sinai. You understand? When he entered into the holy sanctuary inside, that was like Har Sinai. Okay, so that's the Torah. So the second thing, first thing is Ten Commandments. Second thing is the Torah, the 5 books of Moses, the Torah Shebichtav. The mitzvah zo Mishnah. So mitzvah means, you see this a lot in the Torah. For example, it says, Ki ha-mitzvah hazot asher anochi mesavecha hayom lo nifleti mimecha velo rechokai, right? In Perashat Nisavim. So the mitzvah refers to the Torah Sheba'al Peh. Meaning when Moshe Rabbeinu went up to Har Sinai, he didn't just receive Pesukim with no meaning. God explained to him the meaning of the Pesukim. And the meaning of the Pesukim was the Torah Sheba'al Peh. So he received the for example, Ulkachtem lachem bayom harishon peri aisadah. You should take on the first day of Sukkot a beautiful fruit. That's a pasuk. I don't know what fruit. He said, no. He told him, Torah Sheba'al Peh, etrog. He knew that, right? So he knew what the etrog was, right? The kapot temanim, right? So he knew all the arba minim. So he knew the pesukim, and then he knew the meaning of the pesukim. You understand? All right. Continuing. So that was the third thing. The third thing was the mitzvah. We have 2 more things, right? Asher katavti elu nevim uchtuvim. Asher katavti means even though you, Moshe Rabbeinu, are going to be receiving the Torah Shebichtav, and those are going to be the 5 books of Moses, Bereshit, Shemot, Vayikra, Bamidbar, Devarim, but it's going to continue. The Torah Shebichtav is a living, it's almost like a living writing that continues to expand through much of Jewish history. So you're going to have the Nevi'im, the book of Yehoshua, the book of Shofetim, the book of Shemuel, the book of Melachim, etc. It goes all the way through, right? That's the Nevi'im. Then you have the Ketuvim, right? Tehillim, Mishlei, Yov, right? Daniel, right? So the Torah Shebichtav is going to expand lehorotam, and then there's going to be instructions. What's that? That's a Gemara. What does it mean? Moshe Rabbeinu received the Gemara in Har Sinai. How does that make any sense to anybody? That's what it says. So again, Moshe Rabbeinu received the Aseret Deberot. That is simple. Torah, okay, he received the Pesukim, and then he continued to receive more Pesukim. Simple. Mitzvah, he received the Torah Sheba'al Peh. Until now, everything is simple. I can accept everything till this point in time. But then it says he received Asher Katavti, that's Nevi'im Ketuvim, and Lehorotam is Gemara. How can that be? You're telling me Moshe Rabbeinu received the Nevi'im? He received the book of Yehoshua, he received the book of Shofetim, he received the book of Shemuel. That's ridiculous. How? But how? How can it be? If he received the book of Shemuel, what happened to it? Shemuel wrote the book of Shemuel. Why do you have to write the book of Shemuel? Moshe Rabbeinu already received it. Well, at least God he didn't write the book of Shemuel. God finished it. Okay. The point is, whoever it is that wrote these books, they didn't need to. Moshe Rabbeinu already received it in Har Sinai.
But does it mean that he got the actual text of the book, or like a premonition about it?
Encoded within the Torah that Moshe Rabbeinu received is a concept, and this is one of the main concepts in Judaism, is Nevu'ah, that God will send us Nevi'im. Why do we listen to the Nevi'im, and why do we care what the Nevi'im have to say? Because Moshe Rabbeinu introduced us to the concept that there will be Nevi'im, and these Nevi'im are going to guide you, and if he's a Navi Emet, you must listen to the Navi Emet. You understand? So the possibility of Nevu'ah, Nevi'im, Ketuvim, Ruach HaKodesh, these people have Ruach HaKodesh who are inspired by God to say beautiful words. That's from Moshe Rabbeinu. If it wasn't for Moshe Rabbeinu, we wouldn't have other Nevi'im Ketuvim. But they don't have Nevi'im among the Goyim, and they don't have Ketuvim among the Goyim. Think of it for a second. They don't have anything like that. Right? We do. So that's the idea that Moshe Rabbeinu brought into the world, and we built on that idea. And finally, Lehorotam, that's the toughest one, Gemara. You're telling me that Moshe Rabbeinu had Gemara? How can he have Gemara? So to answer this question, one of the great Geonim, hundreds of years before Rambam. His name was Sherira Gaon. And he writes, a lot of the arguments in the Gemara were arguments that were based on, have a good night. They're arguments that were based on, and we're going to be done in a minute. They were based on intellectual problems that the Chachamim knew for generations. Meaning, let's say Abaye and Rabba, they have a mahloket. Ya'al Kagam. Let's say, for example, there's a mahloket on the law of lechi. There's lechi for a case of maboy. You have a maboy in Shabbat. Lechi ya'omed me'elav. Okay, lechi ya'omed me'elav. That's one of the machlokot between Abaye and Rabba. They didn't invent it. They tried to resolve it, and the Gemara then has a discussion, and the Gemara resolves this issue. But it was a known problem for generation upon generation upon generation. Meaning, Moshe Rabbeinu, what are you telling me, that Moshe Rabbeinu didn't think about these problems? The point is, yes, he thought about these problems. He couldn't solve everything. You can't solve everything. One man solve everything for all infinite time. There's always a progress. There's always more learning. There's always more studying. But they were aware of the problems, and they said, okay, we're going to save this for future generations. They will solve these problems. Right. That's the Gemara. Exactly. Okay? So, this is how all these things were given to Moshe Rabbeinu in Sinai, some actually and some in the seed that Moshe Rabbeinu placed in Am Yisrael.
It gives koach and strength to all that was past Moshe. Then the Mishnah, the Gemara, in other words, it has its strength and source from Har Sinai. In other words, don't take it lightly. It's not a...
Yes, of course. 100%. Everything that we have, even the Mitzvot Rabbanan, is from Har Sinai, in the sense that Moshe Rabbeinu is the one who said you have to listen to what the Sanhedrin tells you. So the Sanhedrin tells us it's the Rabbanan, but it's the Oraita, because every Mitzvah de Rabbanan, Rambam says that every Mitzvah de Rabbanan is the Oraita, because it's the Oraita, they have to listen to the Chachamim. And that's why you say, Asher Kedeshanu b'Mitzvot HaEsbam. Why am I saying Asher Kedeshanu to light the Ner of Hanukkah? Where did God tell us to light Ner of Hanukkah? Hanukkah, there isn't even a book in the Bible about Hanukkah, it's nothing. Right? There's nothing. How could God told us to light Ner Hanukkah? Yes, He told us to listen to the Sanhedrin. And when the Sanhedrin says you must light Ner Hanukkah, and we light Ner Hanukkah, Asher Kedeshanu b'Mitzvotav. That's why He says Asher Kedeshanu b'Mitzvot Rabbanan. Understand?
Yep.
All right. Let's go, baby. So.